so she can't hear
Instead of like a half hour.
Up to you.
videos.
Okay,
A whole hour.
where we left off on Friday, we were just about to talk about Elizabeth, right? You didn't write anything down about her?
Nope.
Am I correct?
We had,
Except her dates?
yeah, besides
Yeah.
dates, that's
Okay.
about it.
So, following her sister, stepsister, half-sister, Bloody Mary, who was really aggressive, Elizabeth once again inherited kind of a weird situation, especially between Protestant and Catholic England. So, Elizabeth was able to reestablish the church, but never alienated the Protestants like Mary had done. So she kind of put them back together. Elizabeth never married, although she was courted by many of the famous gentlemen from this time period, including some of the authors that we're going to, well, if we were studying the Renaissance as a whole, then there would be some authors that she had courted. There were many assassination attempts. Most of them coordinated by her cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots. So Mary kept trying to kill her because then she could take over. But in 1587, Elizabeth had her beheaded to stall any future attempts. Her Royal Navy defeated the Spanish Armada in 1588, which was a huge relief to England, who had fought multiple attacks from the Catholic countries of the Mediterranean, so Spain and Italy. And she ruled with peace and security and prosperity for the English people.
Like, whenever you said that her cousin Mary tried to assassinate her,
Mhm.
I thought it would be more of like the male cousins that would try to go after her.
So, she must not have had any. I don't know.
Gotcha.
I'll watch the Tudors and maybe I can
Okay.
tell you. Although if it's way back at Anne Boleyn, I'm far away from
Mhm.
Mary and Elizabeth. Okay, when she died in 1603, her cousin in Scotland had to take over, which was kind of the end of the, well, it was the end of the Tudor monarchs and kind of the beginning of the end of the Renaissance in England also. Okay, next thing, we're following along the notes from Connect Ed, remember?
Mhm.
So the next thing is humanism. Make sure I spelled it right. Did anyone write down a definition of humanism?
Something to do with humans.
Wasn't it a time of
I have it here somewhere.
where
No.
they trying to think of how to word
Lively
this.
affairs in this world and like not in the afterlife.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were more worried about in the now instead of like spiritual stuff, like later whenever they die, kind of.
Okay. So primarily, prior to humanism, people who reflected on life, like philosophers, generally referred to two separate things, and these worlds never collided. So one was to refer to the classic philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, and the other was to refer to the most famous ancient philosopher, God, Jesus and things from the Bible. What the humanists did was harmonize those two things. So the classics and the Bible. Now, this may seem like not a
Realistic thing.
something that was like important or meant anything. And today, we are so much more open-minded. Even people who are closed-minded are more open-minded than people were in the 1500s. So this idea that Plato, the ancient philosopher, and God, or Jesus more likely, prophets of God, Jesus, could have any similar ideas would have been like saying that Satanists were actually praising God today. So in the notes it says, humanists relished new ideas and shared a lively interest in the affairs of the world, not the afterlife. So these people were living in the now. They wanted to write about the now. They don't want to think about what's happening in the past. They don't want to write about what's happening in the past. And some of the most famous works from the Renaissance, while Shakespeare's plays are his most famous things, Shakespeare actually wrote books worth of poetry. There are a lot of other really famous poets during this time period. And much of their poetry is about love. Because love is very now. It's in the moment. And it's also something that breaches all time and space. Because it doesn't matter where we are in history, people still experience love.
Aww.
And the idea behind Renaissance poetry is that even though it was 600 years ago, the feelings that people feel when they're in love haven't actually changed at all. That's why we still read Shakespeare. Because even though his characters and settings are old,
English
and language is old, the struggles of his characters are modern. They live forever.
That's probably like the coolest thing I've ever heard all day. Like legit.
I have been on a really good word roll today.
Yeah. Because it's like, that's so true. I don't know. I don't know how everyone else personally feels, but I like reading old poetry, like Shakespeare and stuff, because...
We'll read a couple that I really
Yes.
like. Okay. The Protestant Reformation is kind of on the back burner of my notes because we already studied it last year when we read the Crucible. But now you know that Henry VIII was the one who kind of spurred Protestantism in England. So Protestantism actually started in Germany and other European countries, like at the very beginning of the 1500s. But when King Henry VIII started the Church of England, Protestantism kind of came to the front. Now, what does that mean? People not being forced into Catholicism mean people have more freedoms in choice. What are some choices that people who aren't Catholic have that people who are Catholic don't have? Divorce.
Sex before marriage.
Sex before marriage. While
Abortion.
frowned upon in most
Yes,
religions,
yes.
less judgment than Catholicism.
Abortion.
Okay, maybe abortion. Any of these kind of like hot button issues still relevant in society today are much more strict in the Catholic Church versus other religions. And
What's the difference between, like, what are some other differences between, like, Catholic and, like, Lutheran or Methodist?
okay, so
Isn't it like this?
so Catholics, well, I'll use communion. It's the easiest, most relevant example.
Yeah.
In the Catholic Church, you can only take communion once
Wait, are you videotaping for Kylie?
once you reach a certain age. And also, not only do you reach that age, but you have to have gone through classes,
Yeah, it's
catechism.
kind of like CCD, but you go through classes until like 2nd grade, and then around first, 2nd grade, you have communion, and then you can go get bread and wine.
Take
and,
part of communion.
Yep, you can have your first communion after you've gone through the first like 3 levels of catechism classes.
Yeah, pretty much.
which I
Okay.
have not, so I cannot.
In and also Catholics also handle baptism a little bit differently. Although what is it when you're older? It's not baptism. Is that what it's called? What do you call it? What, like juniors or senior
it's
age?
confirmation.
Confirmation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Forgot. So they also have a much stricter confirmation policy.
Mhm.
So for Lutherans, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not Lutheran, but Lutherans can take. Oh, and also, let me also say, Catholics take communion every church service.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
every
every
Sunday.
Like, and I mean
Yeah.
every church service, period.
Any
Christmas
service.
Eve Mass, whatever. Every time there's Mass,
Yeah, you.
there's
Anytime you
communion.
have mass, you have communion.
Okay. Lutherans do communion every week. No?
It's the 1st and 3rd of the month.
Twice a month?
What do
Do you have to be a certain age?
You have to be confirmed.
You have to be confirmed. Okay? Methodists, you walk in the door on Sunday, you can have communion.
Maybe I should just become a Methodist.
And we only have communion at my church, at least. I think most Methodist churches are very similar on the first Sunday of the month. Baptism, well, let's do confirmation. Any person, it's about like a 6-hour course to get baptized or confirmed. That's it.
It's
Although it's a little bit fancier in bigger churches, in this area, that's pretty much it.
like with baptisms. Do you think different churches do it different ways? Because like, at least like pouring the water and stuff. Because some people like they're like full on dunk a person, and some people are like, oh, you just like
Yeah, some people have to get in a bathtub.
So it's kind of symbolic. My sister, Whitney, my youngest sister, she goes to church at the biggest church in Lincoln. I'll have her send me a picture. This place,
they need a bathtub.
raise your hand if you have been in an arena. Like bigger than like have you been in the Health and Sports Center at Kearney? Like where they play basketball. Any kind of arena.
I've been in the New Orleans.
I mean, okay, I guess I
arena
could
before.
probably say I've been to one.
yeah, maybe possibly quite the
Okay.
A
size.
fairly large building.
That's what her church is like.
Oh.
They have a band on stage.
There
during
is-
church.
I wanna
They have a
choir.
special like spot, and
Mhm.
I'm there. It's not like a tub, but it's more than a font like we use, a little wooden
The
thing
little-
with a bowl
yeah.
that you put water in sometimes. It's more than that where they do baptism.
Oh.
The baptism thing is kind of church specific because I know at some local churches, even like the Seventh-day Baptist Church in North Loop, sometimes if they have baptisms that are going to be in the summer, they will actually go out to the church camp
Mhm.
and do it in the river, actually, like Jesus.
Wow.
So it kind of just depends on facilities and timing. Obviously, they're not going to go out there in January and do that. So
I'll let you go underneath the ice.
okay.
Oh, God will save you. Oh gosh.
All right, I'm scrolling through here. We talked about humanism a little bit. We talked about Elizabeth. People were in love with her. James was the person that followed her cousin.
James, my boy.
Shakespeare was the. We'll talk about his.
The
Did
author.
we read Romeo and Juliet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
We
So
stood
already
on the
talked about
table and
that.
said,
Oh yeah, because Cord was in here. Oh no, that
No,
Cord's the next
it was
year.
Damon. Cord broke
2
the
years
stick.
in a row.
Yeah. Okay.
It was. Were you guys in here that year?
I know I
Yeah,
was.
I've always been with you guys for.
I-
Okay.
I thought we had a really
I've
small
been
class
forced
that
to
year.
stick with you guys. Yeah.
Ah, of
Oh.
course.
Hey, I didn't sign up for anything. but
Okay.
it just happened.
Couple other things that weren't in the notes that I'll add. One of the reasons that the philosophies of the Renaissance and humanism were able to be spread to the masses was because of the invention of the printing press by a guy named Johann Gutenberg. And he was German. This is how you spell his name.
Does this go under like Elizabeth and
Oh,
all
I put
them?
it with a Y.
No, this is like a separate category.
Okay.
So Johann, can't spell. Gutenberg, invented the printing press in the mid-1400s in Germany. By the time it reached England was about 1476. And by the time English people really had access to books was much closer to the 1500s. Now, this is significant because prior to this, who owned books?
Only monasteries.
Only
like,
rich people.
Monasteries and people who were very rich because books were super, super expensive.
And now we give them out
But
for free.
now, in 1500, books become affordable to even the lowest members of society. How does that change your society when any person can own a book?
Everybody is educated.
Okay?
Yeah.
Everybody can
I mean, people form
Everybody can
different
read.
ideas whenever you have different material.
Okay, how did you get information before that?
Speaking.
Stories and tales and
People who were
Close.
Or educated.
around you.
Face to
Okay.
face.
So whatever you knew was what
They knew.
they knew. Now with books, you can know what you want to know. So it opens up a whole new world of understanding for the
I
people
never
of
thought of
England.
it like that.
I guess it also probably saved a lot of people from contracts because there might be a word in there that they didn't know and that could end their life.
Yes, reading people, the number of people who could read dramatically increased during this time period also. Okay, the original printing press. Why? Markers. So stupid. Now, there would be these metal sheets, and they kind of look like, you know what a Scrabble tray looks like?
And you would have to put them in by hand. Right?
Okay, you know what a Scrabble tray looks like? It's a
Yes.
little- Basically, that's what was on here.
It's off of the
And
newsies.
then there was a box full of letters. And you had to go through there and pick out. So what are the first words of the Bible?
I don't know.
in the beginning.
God created the heavens and the earth. Oh my gosh, they had to do that for the entire Bible? I wouldn't have done it. That would have taken literally your entire life.
No, just a few hours.
Well, you were just responsible for one page.
How many people wrote this Bible?
Well,
You know, I've always wondered that. Like, they say that, like, God wrote the Bible, but then, like, was there just, like, a book that appeared someday? And
God didn't write the Bible.
well, like, you know what I mean? Like, they always say that, like,
No. The beginning of each chapter in the Bible has a description of who wrote it down.
yeah, but they didn't write it down.
Yeah, they wrote letters that were then translated into the books of
Stories.
the Bible. Like, I was just reading Corinthians the other day, which is a letter written by the Apostle John in the city of Corinth, urging people to accept the lifestyle that Jesus encouraged. That's what the book of Corinthians is about.
So they just took letters and tried to figure out what they wanted to write and put them
So
in the
some
book.
Bibles are actually written as letters. Like, it will start out and say, the Apostle John writes.
I've never gotten that far.
I've never started reading.
Okay, so the first page of the Bible has like 900 characters on it.
Yeah, it'd take a few hours.
That'll take long.
So you put all the letters in.
and then
on the
realized
whole
you did
page.
it backwards.
Then you painted it with
Ink.
ink, and you took a paper, and
Slapped it up on it.
then you got the next page.
What was if you ran out of letters?
Then you got the next page.
Imagine messing up like one
So you're
word.
telling me that the printing press that they invented was basically a man-powered stamp?
Essentially.
That is
The
terrible.
thing, now, eventually the thing was mechanicalized, is that a word? Was
Yeah,
turned into
I
a
think so.
machine, right? Eventually it became a machine. But this is still significantly faster than handwriting,
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I stamp a page, I put it in the pile, the next guy next to me, he's doing the next page, then he, just down the assembly line style.
Hold on, I'm gonna find one.
Okay?
It's off of the newsies.
I'm sure if you look up actual details, you can find a much better dramatization than what I just provided you. Okay. I'll make sure I covered all the important things. Okay, so the Renaissance was a huge period of growth in the arts. I wish, like, this could be an entire year-long study, just the
I think it'd be
Renaissance.
fun.
There are so many important and famous and good poems, essays, and plays from this time period. You could have a 1-year study just of Shakespeare and still not get through everything that he did. We can't do that. I will pick a couple poems, but we're going to read Macbeth. That's our primary document.
Is that the one where she dies?
Somebody always dies.
Yeah. It wouldn't be drama.
I don't know, Renaissance art is kind of cool, but also at the same time,
Something about a guy falling in love with someone
I
else.
don't know.
And apparently she's not necessarily pretty, but she loves him.
I'm looking for
Romeo,
my mistress's
Romeo,
eyes are nothing like the sun.
Ooh.
I am the
Thirsty
East,
wives, black
and
women,
Juliet
women
is
head.
the sun.
Yeah.
Something, why then you're dressed with them.
I'll read this one to you.
You have to do it really
This,
passionate.
do
You
Passionate.
don't have to.
Okay, this one, I'll read you 2 poems. They're kind of reader response. So one of them is written by one character and the other one's written by someone else kind of as a response. This poem is by Christopher Marlowe, and it is called The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that valleys, groves, hills, and fields, woods or steepy mountain yields. And we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle, embroidered all with leaves of myrtle. A gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair-lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee prove, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swain shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love.
Aww.
So it's a poem about someone who is
Wanting to have the love of her life come live with her.
willing to give this woman
And
whatever she wants. And now this one was written by Sir Walter Raleigh, which is a response to Marlowe's poem called The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd. If all the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. Time drives the flocks from field to fold, when rivers rage and rocks grow cold. And Philonal becometh dumb, the rest complains of cares to come. The flowers do fade and wanton fields, to wayward winter reckoning yields. A honey tongue and heart of gall is fancy's spring, but sorrow's fall. Thy gowns, thy shoes, thy beds of roses, thy cap, thy kirtle, and thy posies soon break, soon wither, soon forgotten, in folly ripe, in reason rotten. Thy belt of straw and ivy buds, thy coral clasps and amber studs, all these in me no means can move to come to thee and be thy love. But could youth last, and love still breed, had joys no date, nor age no need, then these delights my mind might move, to live with thee and be thy love.
They both ended the same way.
So the nymph wants, or what does the nymph say about all these things?
She
shepherd
doesn't
offers
care
her.
about the materialistic items. She just wants love, man.
Right,
She
they're
will-
nice, but they will all
They'll wither away.
disappear. What won't disappear
is now.
is love, real true love. If you could give me that, I would move to you
well, can't do that.
and be your
Aw.
love.
Can't do anything else though.
That's really nice. That's sweet.
What
Okay,
poem was that?
the nymph's reply to the shepherd.
And, like in the Renaissance,
Is that Shakespeare?
They kind of use like biblical like
Sir Walter Raleigh
references. Not a lot of them, but
and
some.
Christopher Marlowe. Here's one of Shakespeare's most famous sonnets, Sonnet 130. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such rose see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet by heaven I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. So in this poem, Shakespeare is making fun of all these things that supposedly make a woman beautiful. Red lips, like rips. Eyes like the sun, lips as red as coral, having fair white skin, coarse black hair, voice like a song. He says none of those things are true. She doesn't look or sound or act anything like you say she should. And yet she is perfect for me.
Aww.
How sweet.
Isn't he sweet?
Was Shakespeare married?
No, allegedly he had a long relationship with a married woman called the Black Lady, but many of his sonnets are supposedly about her. One of the essays that I wrote in college was about a group of his sonnets that are referred to as the Black Lady sonnets. How disgustingly in love he was with this woman who he could never have in reality,
Dang.
but was mildly probably obsessed with.
I mean, if he's making poems about me, I'll take it.
But see, many many Renaissance women had poems written about them.
Oh yeah. If a guy wrote a poem about me,
But not Shakespeare poems.
yeah.
Well,
Shakespeare, bro.
Like many famous people, so Shakespeare, well, let me back up. Shakespeare was not like other writers, because he was very famous during his time period. But he was famous not for his poetry, but for his plays. And a lot of people didn't take him seriously as a poet. They said, you're a playwright, like, stay in your lane.
Ooh.
But in
They finna
the
get some
future world, his poetry became nearly as successful as his plays.
So would he be like considered? Say we seen like a famous person walking down the street, like that's what he'd be compared to in his
Yes.
day, like a famous.
He'd be like a Leonardo DiCaprio, dude.
That's
like,
what I would be compared to.
He's like a Leo.
I thought you were saying Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh,
That
fair
too.
enough. Fair enough.
Yes, he would have been that famous.
I wonder if Shakespeare was like hot, like back in the day.
Okay, I am right now posting some discussion board
he's
questions
gross
on Schoology.
Oh boy.
So what I need you to do is go to Schoology. And you should see a new folder pop up that says Macbeth.
English.
Macbeth. Macbeth.
Oh, we'll
It's
have
empty right now.
to
Just-
change our photo.
Yes, I
Ouch.
will.
Macbeth.
Oh no, why did you do that?
I don't know. Probably.
There we go.
Oh, some popcorn.
Sure.
I don't want any more.
I'll take some.
You can have it.
Oh, okay. I was very confused because where it was sitting, it looked like the straw was in the popcorn.
Where?
Yeah.
My sister was drinking hot chocolate with a straw.
Have you ever stuffed a marshmallow up to a straw?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Hi.
Per.
That was odd.
What time does this class start?
Yes.
No.
147.
147, I want to say.
We get 2:30.
Why? Putting the due date on it.
Yeah.
Oh no. Probably only gonna have
Okay. If you refresh that screen, you should be able to see the discussion board now.
Yes, it's evil inherent in human nature. Well, according to
Okay,
the
I
common
would
law-
like you to answer each of these questions.
What's the question?
No,
Rhetorically?
not rhetorically. In several. Answer them completely.
Like
Yeah.
so multiple sentences.
Multiple sentences, reasoned, like with your reason. So these are like philosophical,
Oh, this is gonna be so fun.
thinking about how you feel in your soul kinds of questions.
Okay, so no evidence and citation.
No, the evidence is why
From
you
your
think that.
heart
I was
and your
thinking like
mind.
Hobbes and Locke and get some of the
So there is no right answer on this.
Leviathan
This is
and all
awesome.
those things, but okay.
Well, there's no wrong answer, but she can judge you on based on your answer.
Are women naturally more evil than men? I feel like that question is targeted to a particular audience.
I've never taught this class and had only one boy in it before.
Okay.
It's targeted definitely towards you, Thad.
So if I were to answer yes,
I will not be offended.
You've never had a boy in this class?
no,
I've always, well, almost always had a boy, but more than one.
Yeah.
So he did not feel singled out.
Are you looking at all the spell checks too? He was reading all the words that were spell checked because there was like, never mind. What are all these? What the heck?
You may also, should have said this before you started typing, you may want to type this in a Google Doc and then paste it because the discussion board doesn't save.
Ooh.
It's very possible I could just write, it depends on your point of view for the answer for every single question. And it would all be correct.
But I want your point of view, so
Why did you write down the questions twice?
I deleted it. I don't know why.
Okay.
It did that when I pasted it in. But if you refresh it, they're gone.
It's not gonna be like that anymore.
Best pre-reading. Oh, thanks for calling you.
My phone's been having, I had like 4 really strange numbers call me today. So
I had one. It was from
apparently
Scott's
my
Bluff.
number went onto some call list today.